Hey, you listen to Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and MPR. As always, I'm Grady, and live on Skype we got Josh.
Hey.
We're going to be cracking into the show with the NXT Takeover from this past weekend. It's going to be all gold for this first half of the show. And really, it's just because I want to talk about this opening match and nothing else, as we saw Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez win the Women's Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic.
Yeah, your girl got a major honor.
The first one, really. But I will take it, and I will take it as signs of good things to come. Unfortunately, it was at the defeating of Ember Moon and Shotzi Blackheart, who, as much as I love Dakota Kai, I also like those two as well.
Yeah. This is honestly, this is all about Raquel Gonzalez.
Mm-hmm.
Your girl's just tagging along.
For
this rocket pack that's being attached to Raquel.
I don't appreciate that tone.
I have a feeling that the eventual aim is for Raquel versus Io.
Mm-hmm.
I get the feeling that's the eventual outcome, which means that the title shot they're getting from this might not go so well.
No, you're not allowed to say that. You're not allowed to say that. They will win the titles here, undoubtedly. As I'm just going to skip to get the exact details. Hopefully this has it. Is it 2 weeks from now? Yes. In 2 weeks, it will be Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax versus Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. And I think the entire confrontation segment that happened was half and half, because there was the Dakota Kai Shayna Baszler stuff, where for once in that face-off between those two, Dakota Kai didn't come out looking like a scared little word I can't say on radio. But there was also a Raquel and Nia piece as well.
For once, she didn't get her arm broken.
Yeah, pretty much. She stood up to Shayna, and she, as she said, she's a completely different Dakota than when Shayna was down here.
Yeah, this will be interesting to see if they will pull the trigger on an NXT tag team. But I have severe doubts that they will.
I think if they were going to pull the trigger on an NXT tag team, it would be this one. Just because it's a well-established team that's been around for a while. You know, they can go, they got chemistry. They wouldn't look out of place if they had to defend the titles on main roster or anything like that.
Yeah, and Raquel Gonzalez is like the legitest person that could challenge Nia Jax's strength. Because we've seen some crazy stuff from Raquel. So on paper it works.
Good. Say that 100 more times and maybe it'll happen. Maybe I'll get the title change I want. But if we're sticking to the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic, let's talk about the men's, because later on that night at NXT Takeover, MSK defeated the Grizzled Young Veterans to claim the men's one.
Yeah, not really a big surprise.
No, Grizzled Young Vets are great runners-up.
Yeah, I think honestly, I think the Grizzled Young Veterans are needed on Raw or SmackDown. I think they would do really well in bolstering the tag division up there, and I don't really see much that they can do right now. In NXT, this would have been a nice reward for them, but come on, it was against the guys that debuted in this tournament, and that was the whole point of this tournament, was to put these two guys, the new guys, over.
Yeah, that seems to be, the case from their debut as a mystery team all the way through to them winning the trophy at the end. The story, as you say, is MSK. That was the solid foundation of this entire tournament. And them eventually getting their NXT Tag Team Championship match should be interesting as well to see whether we pull the trigger on that as we just continue to rocket strap these guys from their debut.
Yeah. That the big question on that will when it comes time for their tag title match will be where are they still going to be doing anything with the Pat McAfee group?
Mm.
Because that story is still going on, even if Pat isn't technically involved right now.
Yeah, it's a weird one because I guess we talk a little bit about the main event to mention this, but the whole Pete Dunne, Oney Lorcan, and Danny Burch stuff, they as a trio are still fairly strong, fairly tight together, helping each other out, doing what they need to do. And Pat did pop up this week on NXT to send in a pre-recorded video about the ending of this show, but yeah, I don't quite know what the long-term plans are for that group.
Yeah, so will be a major question on whether they actually win the titles or not, because I could see them winning it and then the Pat McAfee group still helping Pete Dunne in his chase after one of the singles titles.
Hmm.
But then again, it could be a case where everything just falls completely apart here in the next few weeks for that group. We really don't know.
Well, one thing that we do know going into NXT the next week is that Johnny Gargano is still the NXT North American champion.
Yeah, it was a really, really good match between these two. I'm not that surprised. I think they legitimately want to give Gargano a decent run this time. So, and Kushita's not hurt by this. So, we'll have to see if we get another match here between these two, because I would be all down for it. But Gargano is definitely on a much higher plane than he was in his previous two title reigns. Also, they did a really sneaky job of kidnapping Austin Theory. I just assumed when it happened that somebody threw a towel in his face and he was backstage dealing with that.
Yeah, we both had to rewind to catch what had actually happened with him.
Yeah. Yeah, the towel just comes out of nowhere, so it just assumed somebody just tossed it over their shoulder and hit him in the face. No, it was Dexter Lumis just sneakily grabbing him and taking him away. Me boy.
Yeah, and he honestly didn't stay kidnapped too long, because the next week on NXT he showed up in his underwear, and they got him back. It did distract Candice and Indy enough to lose a match to Shotzi and Ember, but he escaped?
I'm not so sure he escaped as he was allowed to leave.
Yeah, that probably makes more sense.
Yeah, just the mess with our NXT North American champion's head a little bit. This is obviously the next feud for Gargano. So the question is, do they pull the trigger on a Dexter Lumis title run, which I actually think we were probably going to get in that ladder match a few months back before he got hurt?
It seemed like we were lining up to a Dexter Lumis title run a while ago.
Yeah. So does everything come back full circle? And this is why Gargano didn't lose to Kushida, is because the plan is to elevate Lumis to the title by beating Johnny Takeover.
Definitely possible. I think Lumis is going to win that title eventually. He's got gold in his future, and why not do it now?
Yeah, and whatever happens after Gargano loses the title, he has to leave NXT. There's nothing else for him to do in NXT. So I would put him on SmackDown, honestly. As a matter of fact, I'd probably reform DIY on SmackDown. If I was in the charge of booking, that's what I'd do. Because we need bodies in the tag division, for Christ's sake.
We do need bodies in the tag division. But yeah, I don't know. At the moment, the stuff he's doing with The Way is pretty fresh, but he's still the focus of that team. That team is still just Gargano and co. So I think when that can shift and Austin Theory and Indy Hartwell can become the focuses of that, and he takes more of a background role onto that team or that stable, would, I guess, help out the development of some new talents there in NXT. We also had a NXT Women's Championship match. Io Shirai successfully defending, that's a theme of the night, against Mercedes Martinez and Toni Storm.
This was a great triple threat. These three ladies brought it, but then it also asked the question, who can take Io Shirai down? Because these were two of the strongest characters in the women's division. So is it going to end up being Candice?
Well, I think from the next week on NXT, Toni Storm isn't finished with Io. She wants another shot. So it's possible in the 1v1 that something happens there and Io loses the match there compared to the triple threat. But you are asking some interesting questions about who can take this title off of her.
Yeah, it's basically Asuka all over again. They've thrown everybody they can at Io, and nobody's been ready for her. So that brings me back to, it's either Candice who got hurt, and we probably would have seen a match between them if she didn't at some point, or we wrap around back to the beginning, Raquel Gonzalez.
Well, I have one option, but I'm not overly fussed by it just because I don't know if I want the two storylines to collide. But we are building up Xia Li as this unstoppable nightmare force. So we do have a chance there. She's just absolutely really hurting people. I don't know what words I can and can't say.
Yeah.
Really hurting people on her way, and she's promising to, and I quote this time, purge Casey Catanzaro next week.
Yeah, so that's that would be an interesting option, but I'm not sure now's the time.
Yeah, I don't want the storylines to collide just yet.
Yeah, it's not that I wouldn't. It would be fine. It's just I think it's a little early in her push to face the champion. But they've done crazier things, so it's definitely possible. But I really believe the one that takes down Io is Raquel Gonzalez. I just, everything that I've seen from Gonzalez, it tells me she's a star and that they're building her and building her and building her. So that's I do admit I'm tunneled in here on one person in particular. But I will not be surprised with anything they decide to do, because this is WWE. They will always do the least expected thing. when you're expecting one thing, they'll flip the script and give Edge the Royal Rumble win. So,
all right. Well, I'm gonna have to do something to us here. I'm gonna have to pick up what we've got left, which is the entire main event scene. It's this massive turn, this massive storyline stuff for NXT, right? I'm gonna pick it up and we're gonna park it over here. Because not only did we have a takeover this past weekend, we got Elimination Chamber coming up. And we've got to save some time to talk about Elimination Chamber. So we will get back to you, NXT main event scene. We will get back to you. But for now, we're going to go into our song of the week. And that is the theme for Elimination Chamber by the Pretty Reckless. And that is playing for you now. And you're back in the Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and MPR. I'm Grady, he's Josh, and now it's time to look at Elimination Chamber. We got 5 matches announced at the moment, 2 of them kind of combined, so hopefully we can get through them. But let's talk about the Raw Women's Championship match that we might not get. Card subject to change. Asuka versus Lacey Evans.
Yeah, I have no idea here. I've despite the internet's hatred of the storyline, I've enjoyed it. It's something different. Lacey Evans has played this role perfectly, and Charlotte is Charlotte. Charlotte's great. So I wanted to see some sort of conclusion, but it looks like we're not going to get that because, unfortunately, or fortunately for Lacey at least, she's pregnant. So, and this is a legitimate pregnancy, not a storyline pregnancy.
Well, it's both, but yeah.
It's both, but it's one causing the other.
Yeah.
So now the question is does Asuka defend her title? And if she does, against who? Because there's a 99.99999% chance it's not Lacey Evans. Because I don't see them actually allowing a pregnant woman to wrestle. That's a PR nightmare.
Yeah, it is.
So did he just pull the trigger and go, all right, Asuka Charlotte? Just to get that out of the way. Or do they did you just throw a random opponent out in front of Asuka, an open challenge, and we have that, and Asuka retains?
Because look, I know we've got a SmackDown between now and Elimination Chamber, but Chamber's in like 3 days, and we've got 5 matches. So if one of those is falling off the card, we got to do something to replace it. You know, if it was a bigger stacked card, then we could easily just say Asuka Lacey just drops off.
Yeah. It's very possible you just may replace the match with a Sasha Banks versus X. I don't even know the storylines on the women's division right now for SmackDown, so it'd be maybe we'll have a champion versus champion match just randomly, not for the titles, just Sasha versus Asuka because we need them on the card.
We'll have to wait and see what happens in the women's division, but instead let's look at the WWE. Oh, you go?
No.
You
I
good?
was just making noise.
Alright, the United States Championship, Keith Lee versus Riddle versus Bobby Lashley.
And there's serious questions about this match, too. That seems to be a theme.
It's that road to WrestleMania.
We don't know if Keith Lee's going to be involved or not. For some unexplained reason, there's a question about his availability for the match. So we don't really know anything here. If Keith Lee is involved, I think he takes the title.
Mm-hmm.
If not, as much as I like Matt Riddle, I think it's a retain.
Yeah, there's a few different ways like it could go. Obviously, MVP as well, if you want to cast that net wider in terms of things messing with matches. MVP, I believe, is legit injured at the moment as well. And so the whole explosion of the Hurt business and stuff. Obviously, my preferred is MVP turns on Lashley and joins up with Keith Lee and gives him the title. But yeah, if Keith's not there, I don't know if we hit pause on the Keith Lee stuff, in which case it is just a retain and we wait a little bit longer until Keith can show up and take the title. I don't know what the go is there. There's a lot of uncertainty at the moment.
Yeah, this is like, there's giant questions all over the place here. And Keith Lee's involvement really does like put a pause in it, because I'm sure the X was going to happen, which is Keith Lee winning the title. But if he's not even involved in the match,
it's kind of hard to win.
It's kind of hard to win. 1, 2. It's like, well, do I want Lashley to win or do I want Riddle to win? And I want Riddle to win, but I think Lashley's going to win. Which is so. Who knows? They may replace Keith Lee with somebody else, and that person wins, for all we know.
Damian Priest?
That
was a groan.
Yeah. No, it's not that. It's just like, well, that would put the title in that Bad Bunny storyline.
That's fair. We know where that's heading for WrestleMania, so let's not muddy that water. we have an Elimination Chamber match for the WWE Championship. Drew McIntyre will be defending against AJ Styles, Jeff Hardy, Randy Orton, Sheamus, and Kofi Kingston, with Sheamus coming out last.
This is going to be a very, very good and very interesting chamber match. And it's also got some question marks in it as well.
Stop putting question marks over things.
Well, it's because they included Kofi Kingston.
It's true.
Who had to win a gauntlet match to get his spot. I don't think he makes it to the pod.
Yeah, I think we discussed this in chat. We are all in pretty uniform consensus that Mustafa Ali is gonna stop him on his way down. And I think that logically makes sense for this storyline. You know, they're trying to sell it a lot as, you know, Kofi Mania 2, can lightning strike twice, kind of thing, and Ali's been referencing the fact that Kofi Mania only happened because he got hurt. It's a perfect storm.
Yeah, I definitely think Kofi gets taken out. Now the question is does Ali just walk in and take his spot? Or does somebody else take advantage, like, say, The Miz, of the missing pod spot and take it? So that's a lot that's where the questions come into play. I don't think those questions, though, really affect the outcome.
No.
Because either there's only two options for me that I see happening.
There's two?
Yes. And they both end up with the same outcome at WrestleMania, so...
Okay.
Alright. Either Drew retains, or Sheamus wins, because they're both going to face each other at WrestleMania.
Yeah, I see that exact same outcome, but via a Drew win. I don't, as much as I love the man, I don't see Sheamus winning here this weekend.
I could see there being something dirty that results in Sheamus winning. So that Drew can say it was a fluke.
Yeah, I guess there's a slight chance, but I don't know. As you say though, Drew McIntyre, Sheamus at Mania, or at whatever the next pay-per-view is that's like being shoehorned in because we had to.
Yeah, so it's just but as I said, this is a 2-outcome match for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I still don't see The Miz cashing in because I don't think The Miz is ever going to cash in. At least not until after WrestleMania.
Yeah. Alright, well, we are running out of time, so let's quickly run through the Universal Championship. It's Jey Uso versus Kevin Owens versus King Corbin, Sami Zayn, Cesaro, Daniel Bryan. The winner faces Roman Reigns later on that night.
Well, this was... I want Cesaro to win.
Oh, yeah.
I really want Cesaro to win. Just to give him a little bone before the big dog rips that bone away. Yeah, this is going to be a very interesting situation. Clearly, Roman's in the best situation of any champion because he's going to be fresh when this match happens.
Yeah.
In fact, what I would expect to happen is that the SmackDown Chamber match happens. The winner is whoever, probably either Cesaro or Kevin Owens. And Roman Reigns comes out for his match immediately after.
Yep, that's what I was going to describe. As soon as you raise whoever the winner's hands is, Roman Reigns' music hits.
Yep. And there'll be several spots where Cesaro or Kevin Owens. I really hope Cesaro because I'm tired of Kevin Owens.
Just stop saying Kevin Owens' name and it won't happen.
Yeah, it's like Beetlejuice. I've said his name 3 times already, so it's probably going to happen. But yeah, I want Cesaro to win here, then have a decent showing against Roman, maybe, and that leads to Fastlane and a legitimate shot for Cesaro, where we get an even better match between the two. Cesaro almost takes the title several times, maybe even hits a neutralizer, but Roman somehow kicks out. And that elevates Cesaro, because we know it's Roman versus Edge at WrestleMania. We know that's where we're going, even though they haven't told us that. That's where we're going with this. So, why not give Cesaro an elevation through this chamber match, the chamber title match, and then Fastlane?
Let's do it. Let's book it in. We'll just do it right now. Just tippy. And it's booked in. See how easy that was? I did it. Locked in. Can't go any other way. It's definitely not going to be anybody else whose initials are KO.
For all we know, it may end up being Jey Uso, and then Jey Uso is forced to lay down for Roman. Make a storyline.
Stop putting things like that into the world. Just leave it with Cesaro. If that's the only possibility we talk about, that's all that can happen. But as we talk about that, we have run out of time this week on the show. It's been great talking to you.
Baby.
You can visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/WrestlingRadio, Twitter page, twitter.com/WrestlingRadio, and we'll see you next week with the results from Elimination Chamber.